He moved among the elite, a phantom millionaire, Jeffrey Epstein. His name, once synonymous with opulence and power, now echoes with something far more sinister. Behind the facade of wealth and influence lurked a predator, a master manipulator who preyed on the vulnerable. Epstein's world was one of extravagance, private jets, island retreats, powerful friends. But beneath the surface a darkness festered, a web of secrets, lies, and unspeakable acts. His sudden death in a jail cell only deepened the mystery. Born in Brooklyn, Epstein's rise was as meteoric as it was enigmatic. From humble beginnings, he ascended to dizzying heights. He amassed a fortune, cultivated powerful connections. His intelligence was undeniable, but so was his darkness. January 20th, 1953, Brooklyn, New York. Jeffrey Epstein is born, a seemingly ordinary beginning for a man destined for an extraordinary and horrific life. His parents, Paula and Seymour, were children of Jewish immigrants, hard-working, aspiring to a better life for their family. They settled in Seagate, a community on the edge of Coney Island. The ocean breeze carried the sounds of a bustling city and the distant screams of amusement park rides. Their son, however, seemed drawn to quieter pursuits. He possessed a sharp mind, a quick wit. His intelligence, evident from a young age, set him apart. Lafayette High School, a melting pot of cultures in the heart of Brooklyn. It was here that Epstein's intellect truly flourished. He skipped 2 grades, his mind outpacing his peers. But even amidst the academic bustle, a darkness lingered. Some classmates later recalled a sense of unease, a feeling that something wasn't quite right. Was it the seeds of his future darkness beginning to sprout? 1969. Epstein graduates. He sets his sights on higher education, enrolling at Cooper Union, a prestigious institution, renowned for its focus on science and art. He delved into his studies, his mind absorbing knowledge like a sponge. 2 years later, he transferred to New York University's Courant Institute of Mathematical Sciences, a breeding ground for future mathematicians and scientists. Here, surrounded by some of the brightest minds in the country, Epstein's intellect continued to shine. Despite his academic prowess, Epstein never completed his degree. Instead, he found himself drawn to a different kind of institution, the Dalton School, an elite Manhattan prep school, a breeding ground for the children of New York City's wealthiest families. In 1974, at the age of 21, he secured a position teaching mathematics and physics. It was a position that granted him access to a world of privilege, a world he would soon come to crave. Even then, whispers of inappropriate behavior began to circulate. Some students later recalled Epstein's unsettling presence. His eyes lingered too long, his comments veiled and suggestive. The seeds of his depravity were sown. Hidden beneath a veneer of respectability, a predator disguised as a teacher. Epstein's tenure at Dalton was a study in contrasts. He had a sharp intellect, able to demystify complex mathematical theories with ease. Yet beneath this brilliance lay a sinister undertone. His teaching methods were unconventional, unpredictable. He shunned traditional techniques, opting instead for spirited debates and intellectual challenges. Some students found it invigorating, even inspiring. Others, however, felt uneasy. His gaze lingered too long on the young girls in his classes. Rumors of inappropriate behavior began to circulate. Whispers in the hallways, concerned glances exchanged between students. It was as if a shadow followed him, a darkness that even the bright lights of Dalton couldn't dispel. Parents, too, noticed a change in their children, a newfound anxiety, a reluctance to attend his classes. Complaints were filed, concerns raised. But Epstein, with his charm and connections, managed to deflect the accusations. The administration, blinded by his intellect and the prestige he brought to the school, chose to ignore the warning signs. 1976. Epstein's time at Dalton came to an abrupt end. His teaching contract was not renewed. The official reason, unsatisfactory performance, but the whispers persisted. The accusations followed him. Undeterred, Epstein set his sights on a new target: Wall Street, the epicenter of finance, power, and wealth. a world where ambition and ruthlessness were prized above all else. It was a world he was destined to conquer. Through a chance encounter at a parent-teacher conference, Epstein met Alan Greenberg, the CEO of Bear Stearns, a prominent investment bank. Greenberg, impressed by Epstein's intellect and charisma, offered him a chance, a foot in the door of the cutthroat world of finance. Epstein thrived in this environment. His mind, wired for mathematics and logic, excelled at deciphering complex financial models. He quickly rose through the ranks, his ambition matched only by his ruthlessness. He became a master manipulator, playing the market with an almost preternatural ability. By 1980, just 4 years after joining Bear Stearns, Epstein had become a limited partner. He was on top of the world, his star ascending in the Wall Street firmament. But his ambition knew no bounds. In 1981, he made a bold move. He left Bear Stearns to start his own firm, J. Epstein Company, his goal: to cater to an exclusive clientele, individuals with a net worth exceeding $1 billion. He offered them discretion, secrecy, and unparalleled financial returns. It was during this time that Epstein's business practices became shrouded in mystery. He cultivated an aura of secrecy, operating in the shadows, his dealings known only to a select few. Some whispered that he was a financial hitman, using his connections and intellect to destroy his enemies. Others called him a bounty hunter, retrieving stolen money for the ultra-wealthy, no questions asked. Epstein's wealth grew exponentially, but so did his darkness. He surrounded himself with luxury, his apartments adorned with priceless art and his social calendar filled with the rich and powerful. But behind the facade of wealth and sophistication, a predator lurked. Jeffrey Epstein's financial empire began in earnest with the founding of J. Epstein Company in 1988. This firm was not just another investment company, it was an exclusive club for the ultra-rich. Epstein's main selling point was his promise of absolute discretion and exceptional returns. This appeal allowed him to attract an elite clientele, all of whom valued secrecy almost as much as they valued their wealth. Epstein's firm operated with a shroud of mystery. He kept his client list confidential, which only added to his allure. The secrecy extended to his methods as well. Epstein rarely disclosed how he achieved such high returns, leading to speculation and suspicion among even his closest associates. This secrecy was a double-edged sword. It made him desirable to clients who wanted discretion, but also led to rumors about the legality of his operations. His business model was predicated on trust and exclusivity. Epstein marketed himself as a financial wizard, someone who could navigate the complexities of the market like no other. He often boasted about his connections and hinted at insider knowledge, further cementing his image as an indispensable advisor to the rich and powerful. His main client was Leslie H. Wexner, the billionaire founder of L Brands. Their relationship would prove to be extraordinarily lucrative for Epstein. However, the success of J. Epstein Company was not built on financial acumen alone. Epstein's rise was also facilitated by his willingness to engage in morally and legally dubious activities. His consulting firm was a facade behind which he conducted a variety of illicit activities, including money laundering and possibly even blackmail. As Epstein's wealth grew, so did the breadth and depth of his criminal network, laying the groundwork for his later, more sinister enterprises. Leslie Wexner was not just another client, he was Epstein's golden goose. Their relationship began in the late 1980s, and for nearly 2 decades, Epstein managed Wexner's financial affairs. The partnership was mutually beneficial. For Wexner, Epstein provided not only financial expertise, but also a veneer of sophistication and connectedness. For Epstein, the relationship offered legitimacy and a direct link to the world of billionaires. Wexner's trust in Epstein was almost absolute. He granted Epstein extensive control over his finances, even giving him power of attorney. This level of trust was unusual and raised eyebrows among those familiar with both men. Epstein was not just a financial advisor, he was a gatekeeper, controlling access to Wexner and his vast resources. This influence extended to Wexner's personal life as Epstein became deeply enmeshed in both his business and social circles. With Wexner's backing, Epstein acquired some of his most notable properties, including the infamous mansion in Manhattan, which was once the largest private residence in the city. This property became a symbol of Epstein's wealth and later his depravity. The mansion was equipped with hidden cameras, allegedly used to record compromising material on Epstein's wealthy and powerful guests. This was not just a home, it was a lair designed for manipulation and control. Epstein's relationship with Wexner was emblematic of his broader strategy: ingratiate himself with the powerful, gain their trust, and then leverage that trust for his own benefit. This strategy extended beyond Wexner to a network of influential individuals across various sectors, from politics to academia to royalty. The connections he forged during this period provided a foundation for the human trafficking network he would later orchestrate. In the 1990s, Epstein set up his operations in the US Virgin Islands, turning the secluded paradise into a fortress of secrecy and debauchery. He purchased Little St. James Island, which locals would come to refer to as Pedophile Island. This isolated location offered the perfect cover for his illicit activities. Away from the prying eyes of the law and the media, Epstein transformed the island into a haven for his criminal enterprises. The sprawling estate included luxurious accommodations for guests as well as facilities that were reportedly used for the abuse and exploitation of young girls. The island, with its secluded beaches and hidden nooks, was a place where Epstein and his associates could act with impunity. The lack of oversight and the island's remote location made it an ideal base for his operations. The true nature of Epstein's island activities began to emerge through the testimonies of survivors and investigations by law enforcement. These revelations painted a grim picture: young girls lured to the island under false pretenses only to find themselves trapped in a nightmare. Epstein used his wealth and connections to create an environment where he could abuse with near total impunity. Epstein's Island was more than just a hideaway, it was a hub for his human trafficking network. Victims were flown in from various locations, often on Epstein's private jet, ominously dubbed the Lolita Express. The jet itself became a symbol of his predatory behavior, with flight logs showing a roster of high-profile passengers. The names listed read like a who's who of global elites, further complicating the web of Epstein's influence and raising questions about who else might have been complicit in or aware of his crimes. Epstein's connections extended far and wide, ensnaring some of the most powerful individuals in the world. His network included former presidents, business magnates, academics, and even royalty. This web of influence was not merely a social circle, it was a system of mutual benefit and at times complicity. Epstein used these connections to protect himself, ensuring that his darker activities remained hidden from public scrutiny for as long as possible. One of the most controversial figures connected to Epstein was Prince Andrew, Duke of York. The prince's association with Epstein drew significant media attention, especially after allegations surfaced that he had engaged in sexual activities with one of Epstein's underage victims. Despite repeated denials, Prince Andrew's reputation suffered immensely, and his ties to Epstein became a focal point in the broader investigation into Epstein's crimes. Other notable figures linked to Epstein included former US Presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Both men had flown on Epstein's private jet, attended his parties, and in Clinton's case visited his island. While neither has been formally accused of participating in Epstein's criminal activities, their associations with him raised serious ethical and legal questions. These connections suggested that Epstein's influence reached the highest echelons of power, providing him with a shield of protection that few others could claim. Epstein's network was not limited to politics and royalty. He also cultivated relationships within the scientific and academic communities, often using his wealth to fund research and endow institutions. These philanthropic efforts were a strategic move to legitimize himself and create a veneer of respectability. However, they also placed him in close contact with brilliant minds and cutting-edge research, which he could exploit for his own ends. The web of influence that Epstein spun was complex and insidious. It allowed him to operate with a level of impunity that is almost unfathomable. This network also ensured that many of his secrets were buried along with him, leaving a legacy of unanswered questions and unresolved mysteries. The true extent of his influence may never be fully known, but the fragments that have surfaced paint a chilling picture of a man who weaponized his connections to perpetrate some of the most heinous crimes imaginable. In 2005, Jeffrey Epstein's carefully constructed world began to unravel. It started with a single accusation in Palm Beach, Florida. A woman reported to the police that her stepdaughter had been abused by a wealthy man named Jeff. This prompted local authorities to open an investigation, which quickly expanded as more victims came forward with similar stories. The Palm Beach Police Department was soon inundated with allegations of sexual abuse involving minors. As the investigation progressed, the police uncovered a disturbing pattern. Epstein had allegedly lured young girls to his mansion under the guise of offering them money for massages. Once inside, the girls were subjected to sexual assault and exploitation. The victims were often from vulnerable backgrounds, making it easier for Epstein to manipulate and control them. The evidence gathered by the police was damning: testimonies from victims, physical evidence from Epstein's mansion, and corroborating statements from witnesses. Despite the mounting evidence, Epstein's wealth and influence posed significant challenges. His legal team, composed of some of the most powerful attorneys in the country, including Alan Dershowitz, aggressively defended him. They attempted to discredit the victims and undermine the investigation. However, the persistence of the Palm Beach Police Department and the compelling evidence they had collected kept the case alive. The case took a national turn when the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, became involved. By the time the FBI joined the investigation, the number of alleged victims had grown to about 40. The federal involvement added a new layer of complexity and seriousness to the case as federal prosecutors began to build a comprehensive case against Epstein. The stage was set for what many hoped would be a significant criminal prosecution, but the reality would turn out to be far more complicated. In 2008, Epstein's legal troubles seemed to reach a climax. The U.S. Attorney's Office, led by Alexander Acosta, had prepared a robust case against him, with multiple counts of sexual abuse and trafficking. However, what followed was a controversial and highly criticized plea deal. Epstein negotiated a non-prosecution agreement that saw him plead guilty to 2 state charges: solicitation of prostitution and procurement of minors for prostitution. In exchange, he received a shockingly lenient sentence. Epstein was sentenced to 18 months in prison, of which he served only 13 months. Even more egregious was the fact that he was allowed to leave jail 6 days a week for 12 hours a day to work from his office. This arrangement, known as work release, was highly unusual and sparked outrage among the victims and the public. The plea deal also granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators, effectively shutting down further investigations into his network. The leniency of the plea deal raised serious questions about the influence and power Epstein wielded. Acosta later claimed that he was pressured by higher authorities to back off Epstein, suggesting that Epstein's connections had played a role in securing the favorable terms. This revelation only added to the suspicions and conspiracy theories surrounding Epstein's activities and his ability to evade significant punishment. The fallout from the plea deal was significant. Many of Epstein's victims felt betrayed by the justice system, believing that their suffering had been minimized and their abuser protected. The deal also drew criticism from legal experts and the media, who saw it as a gross miscarriage of justice. Despite the public outcry, Epstein continued to live a life of luxury, seemingly unscathed by the legal challenges he had faced. However, the seeds of his eventual downfall had been planted. as the plea deal would later come under renewed scrutiny. The turning point in Epstein's legal saga came in 2018, when investigative journalist Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald published a series of articles that reignited public and legal interest in Epstein's case. Brown's investigation identified around 80 survivors of Epstein's abuse and exposed the flaws and leniencies of the 2008 plea deal. The exposé sparked public outrage and led to renewed calls for justice. The renewed attention prompted federal prosecutors in New York to re-examine Epstein's activities. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey on charges of sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. The arrest marked a significant escalation in the legal battle against Epstein and indicated that the authorities were now committed to holding him accountable. Epstein was denied bail and held in the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, in Manhattan, a high-security facility. The indictment against Epstein was comprehensive, detailing his extensive and systematic abuse of young girls over many years. The charges painted a grim picture of a man who used his wealth, influence, and network to facilitate and conceal his crimes. The investigation also promised to uncover more about his associates and the scope of his criminal network. Epstein's arrest and the possibility of a trial brought hope to his survivors, who saw it as an opportunity for justice and closure. However, their hopes were soon dashed. Less than a month after his arrest on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. The official ruling was suicide by hanging, but the circumstances surrounding his death were suspicious and fueled numerous conspiracy theories. Epstein's death left many questions unanswered and denied his victims the chance to see him face justice in court. Even after Epstein's death, the legal battles continued. His survivors, determined to seek justice, filed numerous civil suits against his estate. These lawsuits aimed to hold Epstein's estate accountable for his crimes and to secure compensation for the trauma and abuse they endured. The civil litigation process uncovered more details about Epstein's operations and the extent of his wealth, which included a vast array of properties, investments, and assets. In addition to individual lawsuits, major financial institutions found themselves in the crosshairs. In 2023, JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank were sued for allegedly enabling Epstein's criminal activities. The lawsuits claimed that these banks facilitated Epstein's human trafficking operation by allowing suspicious transactions to go unchecked and providing him with the financial infrastructure to manage his illicit activities. The banks faced significant scrutiny and potential financial penalties, highlighting the broader implications of Epstein's network. The financial fallout from Epstein's crimes extended beyond his immediate associates and implicated broader systems of accountability within the financial industry. The lawsuits against the banks underscored the role that financial institutions can play in either enabling or preventing criminal enterprises. The cases also raised questions about the due diligence and ethical responsibilities of banks when dealing with high net worth clients. For the survivors, the civil suits represented a crucial step in their journey towards justice and healing. While monetary compensation could not erase the trauma they suffered, it provided a measure of acknowledgement and accountability. The legal battles also ensured that Epstein's legacy would be defined by his crimes and the efforts to hold him accountable, rather than by his wealth and influence. The pursuit of justice, even after Epstein's death, highlighted the resilience and courage of his survivors and the ongoing need for systemic change to prevent such abuses in the future. August 10, 2019, a date etched in infamy. The day Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier facing a litany of horrific charges, was found dead in his jail cell. The official cause? Suicide by hanging. A single word, suicide, ignited a firestorm of controversy. Epstein's death, shrouded in suspicion from the outset, sent shockwaves through the justice system and beyond. How could a man facing such serious charges, a man supposedly under close watch, take his own life? The circumstances surrounding his death were as perplexing as they were convenient. According to the official report, Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. A noose fashioned from bedsheets, a life cut short, or so the story went. The New York City medical examiner ruled the death a suicide. Case closed? Not even close. The official explanation did little to quell the tide of doubt that swept the globe. Too many unanswered questions lingered, too many inconsistencies. The whispers began almost immediately. The circumstances surrounding Epstein's demise were ripe for speculation. Theories, fueled by his connections to the rich and powerful, spread like wildfire. Was it truly suicide, or a more sinister act, orchestrated to silence him? Some argued that Epstein, facing a lifetime behind bars and the prospect of his secrets being exposed, chose to end his own life, a desperate act to escape the consequences of his actions. But this explanation felt too simple, too convenient. Others pointed to his vast network of influence. Did someone want to ensure his silence permanently? Epstein's connections to powerful figures in politics, finance, and even royalty fueled speculation about a potential cover-up. Theories ranged from plausible to outlandish. Some whispered that Epstein had powerful enemies who wanted him silenced. Others claimed he possessed compromising information on powerful individuals who would stop at nothing to protect themselves. The truth, obscured by a fog of speculation, remained elusive. Section 3. Investigations and Inquiries. Epstein's death sparked multiple investigations and inquiries. Authorities sought to unravel the truth, to determine whether negligence, foul play, or a more sinister plot was at play. The world watched, eager for answers. The FBI, the Department of Justice, and the New York State Attorney General's office all launched investigations into the circumstances surrounding Epstein's death. Their inquiries focused on the actions of prison staff, security protocols, and any potential evidence of foul play. Despite their efforts, the investigations yielded a mixed bag of findings. The Department of Justice concluded that serious misconduct and negligence by prison staff contributed to Epstein's ability to take his own life. 2 guards were charged with falsifying records, admitting they had slept and browsed the internet instead of monitoring Epstein. However, no evidence of a larger conspiracy or direct involvement by outside parties was uncovered. The official investigations, while highlighting significant failings within the prison system, did little to quell the public's thirst for answers. Section 4. The Legacy of Suspicion. Years after his death, Jeffrey Epstein's legacy remains shrouded in suspicion. The official explanation, suicide, remains widely disputed. The lack of definitive answers has only fueled the flames of conspiracy theories, ensuring that his name remains synonymous with intrigue and unanswered questions. Epstein's death, like his life, became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the power of wealth, influence, and the elusiveness of truth. It exposed the vulnerabilities within the justice system, raising uncomfortable questions about accountability and transparency. The theories surrounding his death continue to circulate, fueled by a lack of closure and a deep-seated mistrust of those in power. Did he take his own life, or was he silenced? The truth, it seems, died with him in that jail cell. Jeffrey Epstein's story may be over, but the echoes of his crimes and the mystery of his demise continue to reverberate. It serves as a stark reminder that some secrets, even in death, refuse to stay buried. Section 1. Scars on Justice. Jeffrey Epstein's reign of terror is over. His death, a macabre footnote in a story riddled with darkness. But the scars he left on his victims, on the very fabric of justice, run deep. Epstein's wealth and influence shielded him from true accountability for far too long. His ability to manipulate not only vulnerable girls, but also the legal system itself, is a stain on our collective conscience. The 2008 Plea Deal, a travesty of justice, allowed a predator to escape with a slap on the wrist. The system, designed to protect, failed miserably. It failed the dozens of girls who found their voices silenced, their pain minimized. It failed to hold a powerful man accountable for his heinous crimes. His death, while robbing his victims of a chance to see him face justice in a court of law, ignited a firestorm of speculation. The theories fueled by mistrust and unanswered questions continue to circulate. Did he truly take his own life? Or was a more sinister force at play? Section 2. Unanswered questions, unending pain. The official explanation, suicide, does little to soothe the raw wounds left behind. The circumstances surrounding his death, the inconsistencies, and the sheer improbability of it all continue to haunt us. While Epstein may be gone, the pain he inflicted lives on. His victims, forever marked by his abuse, continue to grapple with the trauma he inflicted. Their voices, once stifled by fear and intimidation, now resonate with a powerful message of resilience and a demand for justice. The fight for justice extends beyond Epstein. It's a fight to hold accountable those who enabled him, those who turned a blind eye to his crimes. It's a fight to ensure that such a gross miscarriage of justice never happens again. Jeffrey Epstein's story is a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the veneer of wealth and power. It's a reminder that the pursuit of justice is a relentless battle, one that must continue even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. The fight for truth and accountability must never cease. The scars may remain, but so too does the hope for a future where justice prevails and the voices of survivors are heard loud and clear.